Okay, let's get into our super curls. My model Yolanda, she's letting me perm her hair super curly. So I'll go in with a pretty tight rod. Starting at the nape area, I'm gonna let that first section drop out because technically I'll be cutting that area really short. Okay, so let's get into the technical portion about perming. One, you need consistent moisture throughout that perm for several reasons. One of the reasons is that the hair is a lot more manageable, it's easier to control. Second, once all your rods are in, you have to go and apply perm solution and neutralizer. So you want a consistent with the moisture. Otherwise, the perm solution will take different at different spots in the section or different areas in the hair. For example, if say the ends are really dry and the roots are really moist, the dry ends, they're a lot more porous, so they'll be taking a lot more chemicals because it won't be diluted. And say the roots, they're really moist, so inside the cuticle there's a lot of water there. So that's like the ideal situation when you're perming. You want the hair to have a decent amount of water so that when the solution is applied, it'll dilute that solution a bit. So just keep that in mind and just watch out for if you see the hair starting to dry out, just go back and spray it. So here I'm going in, I'm changing the actual angle of my sections. With these vertical sections, it'll allow my curl, when it falls naturally, it'll fall a lot softer than horizontal. So horizontal, it has a lot more strength at the root area. So from the occipital bone down, I went in horizontal because that'll give a tremendous amount of support for the softer curl that I'll be building through the top area. So here I switched up my sections just because I want when the hair falls naturally to have a softer effect. Okay, so just always combing the hair clean, don't get any fish hooks, and just when you wrap the rod, I find it functions best when both of my elbows are up quite high, and it's just like the fingers come into play a lot more organic. So again, now for the opposite side, I'm starting with that one small piece section right around the ear. Just it mimics the same technique and same sectioning and same elevation as that left side. And remember, from here on, I'll be throwing some twists just to give me some extra lift around those ears, because that will actually support my haircut that I'll be doing after. Again, remember, as we're perming the hair, we want to perm with symmetry and balance. If you're, because right now perms aren't that super popular, but it has to be one of our skill sets. So if you get kind of jammed up while you're wrapping your perm, you can like flip the chair around and use your mirror. So you can just match up your sections and your angles more or less, so you can make both sides mimic and mirror themselves. So whatever technique you use on the right, ideally you'll be using the same technique on the left if your aim is for symmetry and balance. Okay, now that we move through the side areas, I'm just pulling the hair straight out, like 90 degrees, and I'm rolling them up. And I'll start to increase my elevation with each section, just slightly. But you have to keep in mind the amount of elevation that I'm doing on the right side. When I do the left side, I actually have to elevate each section to approximately the same spot. Okay, now as we work towards the parietal area, I'm switching the angles, right, of my over direction, because at the parietal ridge, my three-dimensional shape, the head shape, kind of separates there. So by elevating higher, that'll allow my shape when it falls, like nice, super poofy, curly, everything to check in. Otherwise, you might get a little ridge from where like that transition happens from like where at the parietal ridge. So just be aware of that. Some clients, their heads lack a parietal ridge. They're more parallel. Some are more like 3D. So you always have to adapt the technique to the shape, the head shape that you're working on. So again, I have to elevate and approach the left side of this technique exactly the same as the right. It's like cutting hair. We have to get that symmetry and balance in there. So I'll just remind myself, like the first two sections, I just pull them straight out, and then I start to elevate the third. And once I hit the parietal ridge, then I'll increase my elevation substantially. But if you run it through your head, it's easier for you to remember, because a lot of times in the salon, where perming is it's so mechanical. You kind of get lost in the motions, but you always have to have that awareness, because you want, again, both sides to be permed in the same manner. Okay, so still wrapping, no fish hooks, even tension, even moisture, elbows up. So when your elbows are up, your fingers just click in. It's easier to wrap that perm rod in. Okay, so now we'll approach the center portion of this technique. So I'll start off at that crown area, just combing the hair straight out, and I'll wrap that perm. I'm wrapping it actually towards me. So I want that. I'm thinking about that root lift. Notice how as you have to keep into consideration throwing in twist, and once that rod sets right there at the root lift, that's where you'll be applying solution, and that will change the dynamic of the direction of where the hair falls naturally. Okay, so still combing the hair clean. Make sure, I like to comb the hair clean through and then use the end papers. I don't like perming hair if the hair hasn't been combed through clean. It'll, in my mind, like once I hit it with solution, it'll put all these little tiny awkward ridges in it. So anyway, so to get additional curl, we can throw in that 360 twist. And again, working with strong elevation because I want a lot of root lift, especially through the top area. This is a super geometric shape that I cut, so once we perm it, that geometry would just be so intense and in your face. Okay, and always keep in mind that the chemical technique always has to support the cut technique and vice versa. So I'm going in with a cut, it's a round graduated cut, and I'm building up weight. So that's why I'm approaching this perm and through the top portion and the sides and the back. So the angles that I'm actually perming the hair into support the overall haircut that we already did. Just like through the occipital bone, I was going in occipital bone below, I was going with horizontal sections, which will give me like monster support. And then after from the occipital bone to the crown, I flip them more vertically because that will fit the shape that I intend to cut. Okay, just getting in there with our last rod, using consistent tension. Now remember, anticipate that root lift. Notice the size of my rods and imagine that curve kicking off like right at that root. So that will give me a lot of lift and support. So instead of going like more two-dimensional for a cut, my 2D cut will automatically go 3D. So now for the finish, the diffuse. To prepare the hair for the diffuse, I really like to go in using a lot of product. So initially, tons of mousse, a bit of gel, lots of oils, some cream, and all those different textures will actually keep that curl, bind it. It'll prevent the curl from going too frizzy. Now, one thing that's challenging about diffusing the hair, the easiest part to diffuse is the outer portion, like the ends. The hardest part to diffuse is at the roots. But with curly hair, you don't want to over dry. Once curly hair becomes over dry, it has a tendency to go super frizzy. So initially I'll go in and I'll lift the hair and I'll put my focus on the roots. And as I feel the roots like getting drier, then I'll start putting more emphasis on the ends. So for me, when I diffuse the hair, I prefer hitting the roots first and then working through the ends. Otherwise, if I just like do the ends and the roots at the same time, and the roots are so hidden under all those ends, it doesn't get as much heat as the ends do. And again, curly hair, once it's over dried, it goes frizzy, and frizzy looks really bad. So I'm looking for like a nice, healthy, shiny curl. And there we have it, our Yolanda's Super Curl. Enjoy.